I did hear from our student rep who asked if he should be here at 6, Nathan. And I said, you're welcome to come, it's a public meeting. But I said, if you prefer, just come at 7, so, maybe, I don't know. Okay, shall we stand for the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. I think everyone had a chance to review the written cases for election. And now we're on to item 5, which is when we take nominations. Is that correct? Okay. Do we have any nominations for chair of the school board? Yes, Brian.
Nominate as Claiborne.
Thank you. Do we have any other nominations for chair of the school
I
board?
nominate Lisa Rappaport.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next item now is to have presentations made by those 2 candidates. We generally say we do it in 3 minutes. So Lisa, do you want to go first or? Okay, I just wrote this down. I hope you all had a chance to read my message that was included in our packet tonight. Most of the message talked about what we have done in the past 2 years. Allow me the opportunity to talk about projects that the board could consider for the next 2 years. To begin with, I believe we could possibly have a challenge regarding our school board budget for the upcoming year. We've had positions that were covered with ESSER funds, as many of you know. For the past few years, we now have to incorporate those into our regular budget because the ESSER funds have dried up. The council is apparently asking departments to cut back. We will find out later tonight as Karen Kennard is going to speak to us about that at our regular scheduled meeting. However, we desperately need these staff members to continue to fill the void left by COVID and to continue to ensure the wellness of our students. I believe we may have to work hard to mobilize parents, students, staff, and community members and taxpayers to speak strongly on the board's behalf to ensure we have a budget that will work effectively for all of our students. So I'm anticipating a huge mobilization effort, which I think I mentioned to some of you. Several years ago, we had to do this. We had a budget crisis like this, and we had a meeting scheduled for like this room, and we realized hundreds of people were going to come. So we moved our meeting to the auditorium at Portsmouth High School. And the auditorium was packed. And then you have to ask those people to go back to the city council meeting and they have to give the same message to the city council. I would also like to ask the board to consider ways that we as a board can communicate more effectively with parents, students, staff, the community, and the taxpayer about the work that we do. Years ago, news reporters attended all of our meetings and the school board would be in the newspaper the very next day, often on the front page. Obviously, technology has changed all that. Perhaps a committee of 2 to 3 board members could meet after every meeting and get a message out to social media and other outlets so that everyone knows what we're up to. Again, we have 50% of the city budget. We're the only department, we're the highest department in the city budget. And I think citizens have a right to know what we do with their money. However, that's a board discussion and a board decision. So I'd like to see if we can do that. Working on the strategic plan is critical for the next 6 months. You will notice in our packet, but tonight that our superintendent is looking for 2 to 3 board members to serve on each of the 3 pillars that have been established by the strategic plan working committee. Board involvement is very important to come up with a plan that is comprehensive, workable, and thorough. And board members, we had talked at our last meeting about more involvement by the board. So I think this is, Zach, thank you. This is a way to address that issue. Just a little bit about myself. My children are all young adults. I was fortunate when they were in school from elementary to high school that I was able to participate in all the school events and activities. I was a founder of PEP 2000, which was a collaboration of all 3 elementary schools to rebuild aging playgrounds. We raised about $200,000 to achieve that goal. What was equally as important at that time was there was much discord and mistrust among the 3 elementary schools. And I honestly believe that the fact that we came together to build these playgrounds really bridged that gap, and we haven't seen anything like that since then. I was also a founding member of Friends in Action, which is still very active in our high school today. Friends in Action provides social and recreational opportunities for students with and without disabilities. I'm very proud of these two initiatives that are ongoing in our school system today. I was also on the joint building committee when we redid the middle school and the high school. Those were both, if we ever have a chance to do a building project like that, and Nathan will let us know, I'm sure. It's really a fun committee to be on. You get to pick out what kind of concrete to put in the high school. What kind of steel to put in the foundation of the middle school. But anyway, it's an interesting committee. I'm also presently president of the One Sky Community Services Board, which is the board that distributes Medicaid funds to people with developmental disabilities. As you all know, my son Michael is 34 and has Down syndrome, so I've been involved with that board for a long time. I'm also, I've been involved in Prescott Park, the Seacoast Family Y, which is when I worked with Tisha's dad. Interesting, I'm a board member of the Japanese-Russian Peace Treaty, which a few years ago, they were looking for a board member that represented the school department. Because you'll notice they plant cherry trees that come from Japan. They're a gift from Japan. And we've put them all on the middle school. So we had to work with the Peace Treaty group to put those trees down, and I've stayed on that board. I'm also a visitor assistant in the kiosk in Market Square. In the summer, I sit in that booth and tell visitors where to go. It's a fun job, and tell tourists what restaurant, what shop, blah, blah, blah. So that's it. Thank you for your consideration. I have truly enjoyed serving as board chair for the past 2 years and welcome the opportunity to continue. So thank you. Okay, Lisa.
Thank you, Nancy. Well, first of all, I think that no matter how you all vote, you have two fantastic choices. And I think we're really fortunate to have a group of people who've put in so much time and energy and care to do the best they can for our school district and our families and our kids. So I don't think you have a bad choice here. I 100% agree with Nancy that we need to focus as much as we can on improving communication and community outreach and in getting the best possible strategic plan for our district. And especially because it's the first one, I think it's going to continue to be a heavy lift for all of us. That's going to really require us to bring our best ideas and a whole lot of patience and collaboration to the table. I think, as many of you know, I have volunteered in schools for many years. My kids are younger. I've got a middle schooler and a high schooler. And before I came onto the board, I was the secretary of the PTA at Little Harbor and then the president of the PTA during the pandemic. And 1000% agree that that community outreach and connection is vital for our community. It's vital for building trust. It's vital for addressing some of the issues that we still have right now with people feeling like certain schools or certain classes or programs get more or less resources. And it's vital for getting people to support our budget during what's going to be a really challenging time to ask for money. We kind of anticipated a few years ago when we talked about moving some positions into ESSER as opposed to our regular budget that we would be right where we are right now. And we did the absolute best we could to get those positions going. And now we're going to have to fight like mad to keep them. And I would say that during the pandemic, I built a website for Little Harbor in collaboration with some other folks in the district, built a Facebook page that has hundreds of followers, including a lot of families and teachers in the district. And before I came on the board, took extremely detailed minutes of every meeting and got those distributed on an email listserv, got them distributed on social media, and got a lot of people to show up at the meetings. Now, sometimes maybe a few too many people, some of those meetings got a little wild, but I still think at the end of the day that having more voices is better and having more involvement is better. And I think that it will be really vital for our board to have somebody as chair who really has a clear sense of what's going on day to day in the building. And I think that the long view of things is also important, but I would say that what I bring is a real awareness of what happens as soon as those, communications go out throughout the district. I'm talking to parents right away who say, oh, wait, do we have a snow day or did we just hear a speech about the philosophy of how we might have a snow day or not? And then right away the next morning, oh, now I understand. But, I think that people don't always receive things the same way that we intend. And that it's really important to have that feedback loop. So I don't think you have a bad choice, but the case I would make for myself is that I think it's important to have somebody with really strong ties inside the buildings right now who has really good working relationships with people in all the schools. So thank you. And however you vote, I think we're going to have a really great board.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay, would anybody like to comment? Would any board member like to comment before we vote? No comments?
I'll comment.
Okay,
I just want to appreciate both of you throwing your hat in the ring here and, you know, all the work that Nancy's done as chair of the board and all the years that Nancy's put in, as well as all the, I feel like, side projects that Lisa's picked up over and over the years, even before she was on the board, helping the schools and really putting, communication at the forefront and really, you know, throwing her life and dedicating her life to the schools in so many ways. I mean, sometimes I wish I had the time to, you know, I don't know that I think she's got a lot of sleepless nights too with the amount of hours she's put into it. So I don't want that to go unnoticed. I think both candidates for chair have their strong suits. I think Lisa is heavily involved in everything when it comes to the schools or so much so understanding or more so understanding better understanding the ins and outs of different practices when the school is trying to understand from different parents, talking to the community, being involved on social media, communicating to the community. I think she's done a really great job with that, and I think that's a strong suit. Nancy, I think, has some strong suits where she's shown on the board that she's very good with communicating to the public in that way and taking a stand as a chair. And you know, when the newspaper calls for a response, Nancy gives a neutral but informational response from the board's perspective. You know, not taking her own opinion in that way. And I think Nancy has been a very well-known community member. I think she's a great person to have as the face of the board. And so I would encourage the board to vote for Nancy again. As chair, I do think that there are some struggles. There have been struggles with Nancy running the meetings efficiently and effectively, and that's been a concern. And I think Lisa could potentially meet some of that concern. However, I think with the new rules in place and having a solid vice chair to turn to as well as more structure and understanding from the whole board how our meetings should run, I think Nancy will do a better job the next couple of years doing that. And so I think that concern will be alleviated in that way. I do have some concerns for Lisa. Lisa's advocated and has taken strong positions. So I do have some concerns with neutrality in positions and I don't want to overwhelm as well with some agenda items and whatnot too. I know I've asked for stuff on the agenda, but I think I do have some concerns with neutrality. Lisa is very strong and I feel like in your convictions, which isn't a bad thing. But I think sometimes we need a neutral person as chair, and I think Nancy may be a better fit in that way. And so I don't want to put anybody down or you know anything, but I felt like now's the time to speak and sort of voice concerns as well as the pros and cons here. And so I'm throwing it on the table, and I look forward to whoever's the next chair and working with them. Thank you.
thank you, Liz. Carrie,
Apologies, my voice is struggling. Hopefully you can hear me. I had talked to some of you about considering running for chair, which I have decided not to do now. And as I reflected upon that and was able to talk to both of the candidates, my biggest drive for doing that was meeting moderation and trying to move things forward. I look forward to supporting Nancy in this. I think that she's incredibly responsive and collaborative. She wants to make things better. She wants to hear what's not working and to gather ideas. And I think that's the perfect leader of a board, is someone who represents the will of the board. And is really, can be trusted to be that voice and not speak out of turn without discussing the board. I think part of what has us in a strange situation is when I came on the board and some of us 2 years ago, we walked into a wild time where there was a superintendent search. We learned reasons for a superintendent search. There was a Save Steve campaign. We're like in month 1 in budget and turmoil. And so Nancy was the perfect person to take the chair at that point, because there was a huge lack of trust between teachers and the board. And I think that is why she should continue to be chair. I think that people see that. I also think that because of those starting dynamics of those 2 years, a lot of the patterns of inefficiency and I don't know, talking over one another, all the bad habits got really solidified in a contentious time period that we're not starting in now. So I'm hopeful that with all the work Nancy has led us in and norms and things like that, we can continue to work with her to bridge trust to the teachers and the district staff in new and different ways. And so I look forward to hopefully doing that and being a part of that and taking a more active role in other things that is not chairing the meetings.
Thank you, Carrie.
Pip,
I would pretty much echo most of what has been said here. First, I want to thank you both for stepping up, because it's not an easy job, and I really appreciate that others are willing to do it. And I have a lot of respect for the people in that role and the vice chair role as well, because I know it takes a lot of time. And I would echo what Liz said about Lisa's involvement. It's kind of like incredible to me, the amount of time that she's able to devote to the schools and our board, and I admire that so much. And I think for me, I think we're finally hitting a stride with Nancy's leadership, and I think, as Liz said, with the rules in place and with some new board members coming on, I'm hopeful that these next 2 years are really going to be strong, and I'd like to see how that plays out under your leadership. So I will be supporting Nancy as well, but I'm hopeful that Lisa may consider vice chair, because I think that she would make an excellent candidate for that.
thank you, Pip. Anyone else? Brian,
Just, I think, echoing, everybody here, I think 2 years ago, I really encouraged you to run for the chair, because you're well known in the city, but you're also respected. And so I was, really, happy to hear that you wanted to run again and continue the work that you're doing. I know it was a challenging, it's been a challenging couple of years, actually, last 4 years between COVID and then superintendent search. But I think you've done recently, you're figuring out how to navigate through this, and you proactively go after resources, but you listen. So it's important. So thank you.
thank you, Brian. Anyone else? Okay. Nathan, am I handing this over to you now?
Absolutely, I'm happy to help. In the packet were memos that you had already received and have had a chance to review in terms of process. There was a suggestion that it might be best if folks had the opportunity to write their votes for chair and subsequently for vice chair, but they have to be read out loud. So what I have here is a slip for each of you. I'd ask you to write your name on it, please, and then the candidate's name that you choose for chair. I'll collect them, I'll read them into the minutes, and then assuming that we have a a majority of the 9-member board will have elected a chair. If we do not, then we'll have to have some further conversation and I have a different color slip, so they really keep going. If I may, I'll move 3 in that direction. And I'll move 1 here and ask you to slide those down to the rest of the group. So again, at the top of that.
Need writing utensils, I don't, well, we
There
can.
might be some in the drawer back there. I don't know if that's still stuck. Matt, the one right by the door there. There might be some.
Yeah, please, thank you, go.
No? Nothing?
I'm always that kid at school.
That could-
Anybody?
I'm always the kid who needs to tennis.
Everybody good?
Okay.
Okay, we're good.
My house is a hospital
That's
worker.
what happens when you leave pens at work.
Thank
you.
Thank you very much. Would you do that? Zach?
Yep.
Oh, sorry. I'm not-
I meant to do the round
I don't wanna-
on that side.
Couple of folks have some electric
Right.
stuff here, I don't wanna make
Mine-
them undo that, and I'm not a jumper. If I jumped over, we get jumped.
Yeah. Don't look at my answer.
I'm right here.
I'm a teacher, I don't know.
Read it out loud.
Right, no.
Thank you very much. I do some bad word here because I've got my list on bad word. Do I feel the pressure? No. And so I have collected my list is provided as is the roll tonight, in alphabetical order. So Elizabeth Barrett votes for Nancy Claiborne. Tish Campbell votes for Lisa Rappaport. Nancy Claiborne votes for Nancy Claiborne. Tiff Clues votes for Nancy Claiborne. Brian French votes for Nancy Claiborne. Lee Hudson votes for Lisa Rappaport. Byron Maddow votes for Lisa Rappaport. Carrie Nolte votes for Nancy Claiborne. Lisa Rappaport votes for Lisa Rappaport. My count is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 votes for Nancy Claiborne, 1, 2, 3, 4 votes for Lisa Rappaport. And I would suggest you have elected a chair, Nancy Claiborne. So
Thank you, everyone.
Can we cut?
Okay, we will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the vice chair. Do we have a nomination for someone for vice chair? Okay, and I would like to nominate Brian French. Anyone else would like to nominate someone? Okay, the nominations are closed. We will allow each candidate to make some remarks. So who would like to go first? Anyone like to? Anyone?
I'm gonna not give that same speech.
Oh.
Oh.
Okay, then,
Sure.
Brian? you're on.
So, yeah, a little bit about myself. So, I was born in Portland, Maine, grew up in South Portland, Maine. Was really in that area till high school, and grew up pretty economically poor. Had food insecurities, housing insecurities, the whole 9 yards. But through that whole time, I did have some great teachers that saw things in me, but also supported me in ways that were way above what teachers really should do for kids. And I, remembered that, and that stayed with me all through my life. And part of the motivation for being on the board was to really, pay that forward, give that back in a way that I felt I could, help out. So, moving forward, I joined the military out of high school, found my sort of my voice and figured out that I need to be responsible for myself. And really took an eye towards college and really thought about those teachers that really supported me. And ended up getting a master's degree in computer and electrical engineering, ended up getting an MBA on top of that. Which was surprised a lot of people, when I was, who knew me as a kid. And, you know, one of the things that I wanted to do was, you know, I sort of got my foot on the ground as far as, you know, professionally, is to start giving back to my community. And one way that seemed obvious was school board, because, and I've been on here now for 6 years. And part of the lens that I look through when I think about like the plans that we have as far as strategic planning, and all the work that we're doing here today is, you know, equity is a big thing for me, because you know, regardless of your socioeconomic background, you know, you have to have that opportunity for kids, and I really want to make sure that Portsmouth continues to do that. I think there's a pretty good job here, but a lot of the schools and a lot of the communities along the East Coast especially have really grown up and populated, and definitely the class of the number of people and the wealth has really increased a lot. And I want to make sure that the kids still get those opportunities to learn. And that's one of the lenses. Another lens is from a professional point of view. I look at, you know, I've been involved in startups, large corporations, but all in a high-tech thread. And so it's really important for me for good STEM education. So when I look at strategic planning, that's one of the things that I'm thinking about as well. You know, I had the opportunity to hire a lot of electrical engineers, computer engineers, fresh out of school. And one of the things that I started using was a differentiator. And the differentiator was simple. There's a lot of kids that, unfortunately, for electrical engineering, the base of all of it is calculus, which is really crazy for a lot of people. But believe it or not, a lot of kids just memorize calculus, and they memorize equations and memorize these things. When I brought kids into interviews, a lot of times, you know, if I gave them a standard, whatever circuit, diagram, calculus problem, they could just nail it right out. But when I asked them basic questions of like the how or the why, started delving into that, they really memorized the stuff they didn't really learn. And to me, that was a big indication of like success or not success. And so one of the things that I want to make sure, you know, the lens I look through is like, can we make sure that these kids actually learn these things? And, you know, when you think of strategic planning, that's one of the things that's going through my mind as well. The other thing to me, where I look through all of the work we do here is social, emotional, you know, health, and you know, social emotional intelligence, to be honest with you, because again, another big indicator in industry is people who can work with others effectively and not throw a tantrum, or be able to negotiate with others and work effectively. And I can tell my kids this all the time: learning how to communicate with others. If you learn nothing else in high school, learn how to work with others and learn how to negotiate, learn how to do all those things. So to me, that's super important. And also being able to manage stress as an adult. You know, you have to manage a lot of stress. Everybody has different levels of it, but having those tools are going to help you be successful in life. So for me, that's another big lens that I look through. I have 3 kids in the school system. I have my son is at Dondero. His name's Landon. He's 8 years old. He's a big joy. His big thing was he started a cleanup program for all the kids in the 3rd grade at Dondero. And he was really proud of himself because one day he just said, "There's a lot of trash on the playground," and he just took the initiative to organize that. And he was, you know, the cute film of him trying to get people to come on, and I was really, really proud of him. I have two daughters that are in the 7th grade at the middle school who are thriving. They were 6 years old when I started on the board. Now they're 12, which is crazy. And pretty sure that I'm going to be looking up to one of my daughters who's already, 5'8", 5'9", so it's pretty crazy how fast they've grown. But all the work that I'm doing, generally, yes, I want to support all kids, but specifically I look, to try to make sure that the community and the system really helps out my kids too. And so by doing that, by de facto, I'm hoping that I help all kids, especially thinking about myself as a kid and all the supports I got. So I know many of you, part of you know, I'm probably not the most outspoken person on the board, which I think is a good thing sometimes. I think I'm a good listener and I pay attention. And I do speak out when I think people don't understand things or I have difference of opinion. Don't generally try to be the 5th person to say the same thing that I've heard. But being on the more quiet side doesn't mean I'm not dedicated to this and not listening. And as vice chair, I really will be listening to each and every one of you. Want to make sure that we all put these, especially in the strategic planning, get that really moving forward. And also want everyone here to feel heard. Also really excited. So whoever's vice chair, if it's not me, I'll support whoever it is. And super excited to be a part of this new board this year. And yes, as you said, we're not starting out with all that drama that we did 2 years ago. So I'm excited to feel like we're gonna really get to work this year. So thanks.
Thank you, Brian. Do we have any board members that would like to make a comment? Yes, Liz.
I'll lead the way here. I just want to appreciate both of you again for stepping up and taking the lead, throwing your hat in the ring to do this, because I know it's not easy to sort of make yourself vulnerable and put yourself in this position, and also the time commitment is a lot extra. And after talking to Brian earlier, I understand that he has more availability and time commitment to be able to put forward that time that was required to meet with the superintendent and make these agendas. With both the chair folks, both folks running for the chair, I had pros and cons that I'd weigh, and I just would ask the other board members and the new board members to consider Brian for vice chair. And I'm gonna give you just a brief rundown of what I feel like are some pros and cons here. I feel Brian has earned it at this point. He's been on the board for 6 years, as he said. I did have concerns, with Brian being so quiet sometimes, but I do feel like Brian has always hit the nail on the head when he does speak. And he picks up on points that sometimes I see that I don't necessarily always think that everybody picks up on. And Brian has also been very gentlemanly in his approach to addressing anybody if he's had a concern. Sometimes Brian and I haven't seen eye to eye. He's approaching me after the meeting. Hey, Liz, can we talk outside after the meeting? And I always respect him for doing that, because I'd rather have the conversation than have anybody carry it over. I always felt like Nancy was always really great at having a meeting and keeping the meeting, whatever happens in the meeting happens in the meeting, but we could always be friendly outside, and I've always appreciated that. Not that Lisa hasn't. I know that Lisa's very heavily involved in everything, like I said before, which I totally appreciate all the effort and time that she's put into it, but I do still have the same concerns for Lisa as chair as I do for vice chair. If the chair were to be out sick, or God forbid something were to happen, I'm not wishing anything on you, Nancy. But Lisa would then be taking place of the chair, and then my concerns would remain. And I didn't express this before, but in the past 2 years, I have had concerns with Lisa's approach to expressing her feelings towards issues or the stance that she takes on issues. She is very passionate, which I don't think is a bad thing, but when she takes a stance on some things, I think it's sometimes she has a hard time hearing what everybody else and listening, like Brian said, to other people's views. She may listen, but she definitely doubles down. So I am concerned about that impartiality and representing the will of the board versus somebody's own agenda. There's just been some times where attitudes have come up. I feel like there's sometimes a little bit of a bully tactic in getting the point across. I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing if you're getting, you know, for political purposes, getting your points across, but there has been, you know, there's one time where I was trying to add Halloween on the back of the calendar, when Labor Day was also on the calendar, and Lisa cut me off and implied that I was a bigot comparing Halloween to Ramadan, and it was just really inappropriate, and I never got an apology, and I just, at the end of the day, I do think that Lisa sometimes takes for lack of better terms, a bully approach to some of her concerns or her issues or her feelings, even towards the superintendent. I feel like sometimes there's a lack of compassion when you want to get something done. And I totally get the passion behind those feelings, but I have my concerns there, and I think now's the time to express them. I feel like Brian's always been professional in his responses, even when we haven't seen eye to eye, and I do have concerns with that impartiality from Lisa. And so I would ask that the board and the new members consider Brian for vice chair, despite the votes that just were proposed for a chair. And I don't want to end on a bad note. I do appreciate everything Lisa's done and all the work and the time that she's put in. And I hope that you know, if she doesn't become vice chair, that she continues to bring the same energy. I don't think there's anything wrong with that type of energy, but sometimes I do have my concerns when it comes to being a vice chair or a chair of the board and that impartiality piece and representing the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Anyone else have a comment? Pip,
I would just like to reflect a little bit on what you just shared, Liz, because I feel like it's a bit, I don't know that bringing up specifics is a very effective tactic in this setting. And I know there are always two sides to every story. And so I worry that sharing just one side of it in this situation is a bit biased. So I guess I'll just leave my comment there, but I think that I'm very pleased that both Brian and Lisa have agreed to be nominated for this position. And I think that while Brian has been here quite a long time and has contributed quite a lot, I think that Lisa's involvement in both board activities and outside of board activities and knowledge of the players and and those whose daily lives are impacted by our choices and decisions is really exceptional. And I also feel like Lisa has incredible organizational skills, which would help us very much with some of the communication challenges that we've had and the board leadership challenges. And I think the team of Nancy and Lisa would be a kind of balance that would work really well for us.
thank you. Pip, anyone else? Fine.
Yeah, I want to thank both of the members for being up for the vice position. I think, as with the chair, we're in a position to have a good person either way. I think, coming into this meeting, I don't think I had my mind made up on any of these things. I just wanted to express that. In this particular case, I think that I'll be supporting Lisa because I think her dedication to the community is very visible, and I think that that's important with communication going out from the board. And I think that her her and Nancy, I think, will be an interesting combination as chair and vice chair, which will lead to a good representation of the overall board and community, so that's where I'm at.
Thank you, Byron. Anyone else? I'll make a comment. I am supporting Brian, for several reasons. As we talked, he's been on the board for 6 years, and I always feel like he's very well prepared for our meetings. He, is smart. I always appreciate him at budget time because he seems to have a financial expertise that many of us don't have. Well, I shouldn't say that I certainly don't have. But and I really appreciate that because again, like meeting will end and we might talk together after the meeting and he'll contribute something that really makes a difference, I think, in how particularly in our budget discussions. I always think of, you all know Jack Blaylock, he was our mayor, and before he was mayor, he was the assistant mayor, and I sat next to him at the city council. And Jack Blaylock, everyone would be talking, this council would say something, this council would say, Jack was always the last one to speak. And it took him 30 seconds to say what he had to say. And I would always say to him, Jack, you are amazing. And then from being assistant mayor, he went on to become the mayor for several terms. But he would say, Nancy, I don't understand why people have to talk and talk and talk and talk. And that was just his opinion, you know. So he said, that's when every time I think of Jack Blaylock, I think of Brian, because you are a man of few words, but what you say is valuable. And what you say adds to our discussion tremendously. So I think you would be a great, we have people that like to talk, which is fine, but then it's nice to have somebody that just gets to the point, makes the point, and then we're done. So I would like to see Brian, because I think he would bring something different to this board. I think he would bring something, he would be a different voice for us, and I think it would be a valuable voice for us. We also happen to live in the same neighborhood, and Brian recently kept us all out of jail, which is another story. No, it's but he's the treasurer of our neighborhood association. We had a conflict with a neighbor, and Brian was very involved and kept himself out of jail probably more than anybody else. But anyway, the situation was resolved in our favor, so. So I am, Lisa, thank you for all you do. You are, obviously, everyone is a valuable member. We've always had people that have been committed, well-informed, and obviously have intelligent opinions. So I think that's been the spirit of our board for many years now. So I think that's all I have to say. Anyone else? Okay, what color do you have this time?
Same,
Not, yellow this.
yellow this time.
Same approach.
Your name and the candidate's name and the vice chair that you would choose, please.
Well, I didn't know.
Who needs a pen? Who needed a pen?
Much.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, I guess so.
Okay. Like the razor point strategies.
We're in good shape.
Depending on how many rounds. Thank you.
Oh, use the pen.
Thank you.
So close to me feeling. Best day of the year.
They don't feel about you the way you feel about them, but okay.
Last.
Again in alphabetical order. Elizabeth Barrett votes for Brian French. Tish Campbell votes for Brian French. Nancy Clayburgh votes for Brian French. Dick Clues votes for Lisa Rappaport. Brian French votes for Brian French. Lee Hudson votes for Brian French. Byron Matto votes for Lisa Rappaport. Carrie Nolte votes for Brian French. Lisa Rappaport votes for Lisa Rappaport. By a vote of 6-3, Brian French is elected vice chair.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. I wanted to have everyone have a list of our committees. Did Paulette not put that?
I have that, I thought I put it on the tables in there.
Oh, all right. Well, one of the first work things we have to do is assign people to committees. We have, I think you've all seen, well, especially the old board members know what the list is, but you may have all seen the list. You have to tell Brian and me what committees you're interested in being on. And the list should tell you, correct, when the committee meets and how often. So. And it could be subject to change. For instance, I had a conversation today with somebody that said, the policy committee always meets in the morning. Well, if the people that are on the policy committee decide they'd rather meet at night, and everybody agrees for that, we can do that. So the times here aren't carved in stone. And I guess it doesn't really say when it usually meets. Okay. But anyway, if everybody would take a look at this and let us know what committees you would like to be on. I know some of you have expressed interest over the past few weeks, people have said things. So let me know, and Brian, what committees you would like to be on. And we have to make this decision quickly because we're already behind a little bit because our organizational meeting was supposed to be last week, which couldn't happen because of the inauguration. But for instance, the policy committee probably needs to meet sometime this month, or do you want to wait till the beginning of February for the?
Depends
policy?
on people's availability. I
Okay.
mean,
All right.
there's always work to do on policy.
Okay. All right, so if you could get to Brian and me as soon as possible. Did you want to say something, Karen? I would like to.
I think we usually draw the ethics at the first meeting.
That's on our agenda.
Yes.
I have a special cup, the Board of Ethics.
Oh, my God.
Everybody's name.
On this.
Yes,
Oh,
it was not, there was no coffee that was in this cup prior to the names going in.
So exactly, are we doing that tonight?
And
It becomes a maraca after the drawing, so.
For the new people, the Board of Ethics was established a few years ago because elected officials felt they needed to discipline themselves if necessary. So a Board of Ethics was established. It's met once, and we can tell you at another time why it met. But anyway, there's a representative from the city council, the school board, the police commission, and the fire commission. And all of our names are in this cup, so one person will be chosen to be the Board of Ethics Committee representative from the school board. And hopefully we'll never have to meet, but if something happens with one of the elected officials, it may be reason to go before the Board of Ethics.
That like being called up for jury duty?
Kind of like
Yeah.
They try
and then
to.
the sipping cup.
Okay, Carrie.
Two minor changes, and I don't know, I think in the minutes, the futures is only one member. That's based on their bylaws, and we clarified that a little bit ago,
Oh,
but
okay.
both Liz and I have been going, because she's an alum, anyway. And then I think just on the negotiations committees, I think based on some of our contract extensions, the dates are not correct on here. And so it would be helpful just to get an update on that so we can.
We need to update that.
So five of the 7 unions will be negotiating in this coming cycle.
Yeah.
Custodians have an extended contract that will not need to be revisited this year. That's para educators, got a 3-year deal, and they will not need to negotiate. That leaves teachers, administrators, clericals. I think I did that wrong. Because it's custodial supervisors that have the 5-year, not my custodians. So it's teachers, administrators, clericals, custodians, and the cafeteria workers will be up, and supervisors and paras will not.
So
Okay.
we will need funding of assistance,
Okay.
spreading ourselves across all those negotiations.
Okay. Did everybody get those that we need for the next
Teachers,
cycle?
administrators.
Okay.
Teachers, administrators, clericals, even
Custodian.
Custodians and kitchen
Cafeteria.
workers, cafeteria workers.
Okay, we'll make sure we have representatives on all of those. Okay, Lisa,
Two quick things, Nancy. I'm not sure who the redistricting committee members were, but I have never been part of that group.
It was, yeah,
I'm sorry.
On the redistricting committee on the sheet, I've not been on that before. I'm not opposed to helping if I need to, but that was not me before.
Okay.
And the legislative committee will likely meet, I think, maybe 3 or 4 times between January and June. So it's not that frequency,
Okay, so it's 4 times between January and June.
give or take once.
Depending on what's happening. Yeah.
You want to know more?
Okay,
Nancy?
yes.
The redistricting city committee, is that the one that we had previously, or, I know
Well, it's a
We had
revival
mentioned-
of that.
yeah, but then I think I mentioned at the meeting that I wanted to do it too, did we pick people already?
Yes, we did in the month of December.
Okay,
They've
all
already
right.
had a meeting.
And then, I just wanna say for the futures one, I'm still doing it because I can be considered a member, I guess, so, that's.
Oh, the futures. okay.
Yeah, and I guess for the old board members, Peabody and I'm going through crossing off Walker and Peabody, I didn't see Hope's name on here,
Okay, we'll make sure we do that.
I just, in terms of a time check,
Okay.
we have people who are gonna be
okay,
Yeah,
joining
yeah.
us.
Alright.
So I think
Okay.
we can
We can
do some of the
tweak
work
this as
after the
we
meeting
go
around clarifying some of this stuff. And the important thing is for people to kind of see what's there and then communicate with you guys with interest.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Well, we
Sorry.
Yep.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn the public meeting?
We need a motion to go into non-public.
Don't we have to adjourn this meeting
No,
first?
no.
Oh, okay. All right, do we have a motion to go into non-public?
what's going on in public
Liz, second?
second.
Brian, please.
On the roll call vote, Liz Barrett,
here, I mean, yeah,
Yes.
yes, sorry.
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Pip,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Byron,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yeah.
Lisa,
Yes.
9-0, we're into non-public at 6:56. Hold on just a moment, we'll need to turn off the, yeah.
Do we need to close the door?